Hello YouTube, I'm Andrew Does Hair. You can find my work on Instagram at Andrew Does Hair. While I do like to use all kinds of different lights and modifiers and strobes and the best camera equipment that I can afford in my own studio, I do like to keep an eye on what's cheap and easy out there because most of my followers are barbers and hairstylists and not photographers. So if you could imagine, barbers and hairstylists want to have great pictures for their Instagram portfolio, but they don't want to go spend money on like a pro photo and a 40-inch umbrella, you know what I'm saying? So I set out a few weeks ago to try to find the cheapest, simplest, easiest light that I could for salon and barbershop use. And while looking around to do this, what I ended up finding was the Yongnuo YN360. Now, it seems like the industry standard for salons and barbershops who want to light their haircut photos is just go buy a ring light. Everybody seems to have a ring light. This light eats ring lights for breakfast. And for the rest of this video, I want to show you why. So for starters, look how small this thing is compared to that. If I want to bring a ring light along, this is the case that it goes in. But this is the case for the Yongnuo. I could bring 5 of these about as easily as I could bring 1 of these. The Yongnuo is also battery powered. While every ring light I've ever used needs one of these. And honestly, maybe I shouldn't admit this, but there have been times where instead of setting up nice lights like I should, I just didn't because I literally didn't want to deal with cables. So I did get on the old internet and search for a ring light that is battery powered, and of course they're out there. But what I found is for a good one, you're gonna spend $140 to $170, but this thing was about $100, so it's a little bit cheaper than a ring light. So the purpose of a ring light pretty much is to remove shadows from all the way around the face. When you have a whole bunch of light coming from every direction around the face, you won't have shadows in your pores and wrinkles. And so it's meant to make skin look really, really smooth. And that's why it kind of gets lumped in. Like if you're a hairdresser and you look for like lighting for beauty photos, you will always find a ring light because it's intended to make skin look really, really smooth. However, as it's removing all these shadows from your pores and wrinkles to make your skin look smoother, it's also removing shadows from your cheekbones and your jawline and any wrinkles you might have across your forehead, and you end up losing a lot of character in the photos and you get a really flat looking face. I want to say, and I'm not an expert because I don't know anything about makeup, but I want to say knowing about lighting and knowing what this thing does if you shoot straight through it, this is designed to show off makeup application. Like if you paint contours on your face and you shoot it through this, you will see the painted contours, but it's going to diminish the actual contours that are there. So I think that's kind of how the ring light got lumped into the hair industry, is because it had a very specific job in the makeup scene, and then it kind of got lumped in like, oh, hair and makeup is beauty and this is a good beauty light, and then when people look through it or they look at themselves shot through it, they go, oh my gosh, my skin looks so smooth. I don't usually look this good, and so they buy the ring light. But it's not the best thing for portraits. It's a specific tool for showing off makeup application. If you want to make really striking, appealing portraits where you're going to like emphasize the natural features of the client, or you're going to show off aspects of your haircut in a specific way, you want to create shadows. And so the ring light gets rid of all the shadows. So generally speaking, if you have a very large light source, then the highlights will gradually fall into shadows across the face. To where if you have a very small light source, then the highlights will drop off very quickly into shadows. It'll show more contours, it'll show more texture. The fun and interesting thing about the shape of this light is it is a large light source and it's a small light source at the same time. And so if you were to mount this thing vertically, you would find that you get soft, even light from the top to the bottom of the head, but you get some nice dramatic shadows from one side to the other. To where if you mounted it horizontally, you would get nice, even light across the face, but then you would get nice dark shadows and abrupt shadows under the cheekbones and the jawline. So this can be both a large light source and a small light source, depending on how you angle it. I like to keep mine mounted on this little ball head here so I can sort of stick it at any angle. And this head was like $8 on Amazon. This light can adjust its output from 1 to 99 in increments of 1. So you can dial in how bright you want it very, very specifically. Now, if you're in a case where maybe the salon lights are creating some shadows in your face that you don't want, you can use this on a very low setting to just fill in those shadows a little bit. Or at 99, it's bright enough that it can kind of overpower the salon lights and create its own shadows. The YN360 can put out 5600K light, or it can put out 3200K light. If you don't notice in the video there, this is warmer. Also, it can blend to kind of merge anywhere in between the two. It can be very white or slightly yellow or very yellow and anywhere in between. What this means in layman's terms is it can match the color of the sun if you need to match some indirect sunlight. And it can match the color of maybe some tungsten bulbs in your salon if you got like orange lights in the salon. I know this is a big common complaint I hear from barbers and stylists. It's like, oh, my salon's orange, it's horrible to shoot hair color. This light can match the color of pretty much any light you put it in. The ring light, at least the one that I have, and most of the ones I've seen, they can be white or you can put these orange things on there. You have two color options out of it. But the YN360 can be any shade of white or yellow. Now, what I see most hairstylists do is they go, okay, my salon has yellow lights. I don't want my hair color to have a yellow tint to it, so I'm gonna buy a white ring light. And then they throw a white ring light into a salon that's full of yellow light, thinking that it's going to correct and compensate for the yellowness in the lights. It doesn't work that way. If you add a white light to a yellow lit room, you're just gonna make things worse. So basically, you're gonna have some of that yellow light spilling onto your model regardless because the room is lit with yellow light. And so when you add the white light, it's not gonna make the yellow light disappear, it's gonna mix white and yellow. If the camera sees the white light as white, it's still gonna see the yellow light as yellow. In fact, it might even push your camera's automatic white balance to make the yellow even more yellow. Now on the flip side, you can actually adjust your camera, even an iPhone if you have the right app, to see the yellow light as white. But if you do this, then when you put actual white light on your model, that white light will look blue in the camera. And so if you have this yellow light in the salon and you want everything to look clean and pure and neutral, the way that you do that is by matching the color of the light in the salon with whatever lights you're using. And once everything is the exact same color, then it can be corrected either in camera. If you have a mirrorless or a DSLR, it's a pretty simple thing to set a custom white balance. Or even if you're shooting with an iPhone, you can get certain apps and things so that right there in your camera, it'll compensate for whatever color the light is. However, this won't work if you have different colored lights. You need to have all the lights be the same color. So the Yongnuo, being able to adjust its color output to match the lights in the room, allows you then to calibrate your camera, whether before you take the photo or after you take the photo, to make all of the light universally neutral. You can't do that if you have different colored lights in there. So let's say, like in this case here, I have really, really warm lights, like extra, extra warm. So even if I can't get this light to be warm enough, there's actually this orange panel that stores on the back of it with magnets that can clip over the front. And so if I have my white balance in my camera adjusted to say that, hey, these orange lights are actually white, then I can make this thing orange enough to make this thing white and not blue anymore. So the moral of that story, again, you want whatever lights you're adding to your subject to match the salon lights in color. That way it can all universally be corrected to look neutral and show off your actual hair color that you did. If you've ever tried to shoot a haircut on just a white wall to get that clean white background look, you might have found that it's actually kind of hard to make a white wall look like just a clean, blown out white space. In fact, this is a white wall behind me. White walls all around me. Don't they look gray in this video? This light's small enough that you can actually hide it behind your model somewhere and point it at the wall in order to make that wall whiter. Have you ever tried to shoot a haircut, a dark haircut or dark hairstyle or color, to where you're in a scenario where the darkness of the cut disappears sort of into the darkness of the background? This light's small enough, again, that you can put it behind the model and face it at them and just, outside of the frame, whether you hide it directly behind them or whether you move it over just outside the frame and point it at the back of them. By throwing a little bit of light at the back of them, you can cut them out from that dark background. So going back to the coloring of this light, it doesn't only sit within sunlight and tungsten. It can actually be any color you want, really. So you can throw in here some, I don't know, that's red or green or blue, or you can blend them together. Get your purples. So what this means, if you happen to have maybe a gray backdrop, if you throw color onto that gray backdrop, it'll show up in photos and videos very saturated. So if you have a gray backdrop or a gray wall, you can use this thing behind the model, point it at the wall, to make the wall any color you'd like. Or even forget the wall. If you just put it off to the side and point it at the model, you can maybe just add some feelings to the photo, add a little mood, some purple or green. So I bought this light specifically looking for the cheap, easy lighting solution that could fit easily into a salon or barbershop and just do a lot of things. I didn't buy it thinking I would like it or want to keep it or use it or anything, but since I've had it and I've been putting it through its paces to kind of get to know it, I actually reach for it every time I shoot now because it's so much more convenient than setting up like a softbox and running cords around. Like I could pull this thing out and I'm good to go. I actually, right before recording this video, I ordered a second one, and I do expect eventually I'm probably going to own 5 of these. Like, they're just amazing. So I'd say this, if you're a hairstylist or a barber on Instagram and you want to improve your photos, obviously the easy answer is like, well, I'm going to buy a better camera. If you bought this light and you watch some tutorials about how lighting works and how editing works, I think you could do so much more with this and a little bit of tutorials than you could with a fancy camera. So with all that said, I hope this was helpful. Again, Yongnuo YN360. This is the first version. There is a third and probably second version out there. I think the second version went away because I haven't really seen it anywhere, but I know that there's a first and a third, so there must be a second. The third version, I believe, adds a remote that comes off here. I opted not to get that because it cost a little bit more. I imagine I would lose the remote, and also I imagine I'd have to think about battery life when it comes to that remote, and I don't want to think about battery life other than the one battery. All right, I pulled the initial video to add this. So since I recorded the video about this light, as I said in the video, I had ordered a second one, and now I've actually ordered 4 of them total. So with this light, a really neat thing about the neatness of this light is the more of them you have, it's like the neato-ness, it grows exponentially. So something I found after I got my second light is as I turned one on or changed anything on it, the other one changed as well. And since it came with like 0 kinds of instructions, I was a little bit frustrated. I was like, well, that's really annoying. I don't always want these lights to be identical. But then after a few minutes, I learned how to change the channels on each light. And basically, if you set 2 or more of these lights to the same channel, then anything you change on one will change on the other. For example, I have the 4 of these all on one channel. And if I were to change their color, change their brightness, anything I do to one happens to all 4 of them. This is massive. This adds a lot of flexibility. Like let's say I want a very specific color for my backdrop here. Rather than having to dial it in on each of these lights, I can put them all on the same channel, and when I dial it in on one, they all change. That is so convenient. So the way you're going to do this is if you long press the battery button, you'll get an H and a number. So it says H2. H apparently stands for channel, and every time you press that button, it'll change it to a different channel. So each of mine has a number that I painted on it so I can recognize from across the room 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what I can do here, for example, is maybe put 1 and 2 on the same channel, put them on my backdrop, and as I change one, the other will change at the same time until I maybe get the backdrop color I want. And then what I can do is maybe put a fill light on this side on channel 3. I can control that right here from my phone. And then perhaps a hair light on channel 4 to kind of cut me out from the background a little bit. And I can control it all right from my phone. So cool and convenient. I mean, the possibilities are endless. These lights for me have now replaced a lot of equipment. And I can throw these in my bag like nothing. I've already gone on and on and on about these, but they're freaking cool. So much fun. Control. Power. Anyways, thanks for watching.